Hey guys, it's Baba and I'm back with another video thing, and in this one I'm going to be talking about different types of tablets. Now I just want to get the right terminology for both of these down, and I'm going to go by what they're usually called on like the Wacom website, because both of my little tablets are Wacoms, and these are usually called pen tablets, the ones that you plug into the computer and draw on separately and then it appears on the screen, but the ones that are actually a screen that you draw onto, like my Cintiq here, are called pen displays. So we're going to have pen tablet and pen display, just so you guys know what I'm talking about when I say each of those. Something else that I want to clarify before we get into this as well is that getting a better tool or a more expensive tool will not improve your drawing. It may help you in various different ways, which is what we're going to go and discuss. But the majority of learning to do digital art and how to get it to look how you want it to is figuring out the program and also just basic drawing skills that you can learn anywhere. Okay, so with that said, what I'm going to do is go over like each of these and how they work and what the differences are and what I've personally found is more helpful or less helpful about each one of them. Okay, so let's check out the little pen tablet first. Now I've plugged it into my computer. Just by here I've had to plug him into the Cintiq, but it's only letting me draw on this screen, so I'll show you guys what it's like on this screen. Now, first of all, with these, my little pen tablet is a Wacom bamboo. Now they don't actually make bamboos anymore. I think they're all inchwasses, and the bamboos are now little like digital signature things that are probably only about like this size, like this corner of it, that people can like write their signatures on in shops and stuff. Now we're going to assume that everyone's initial kind of understanding is that they're used to drawing on paper, so they'll draw on it and the lines will appear directly where the pen is. So going from drawing on paper to using a pen tablet is a little bit different, because you can see as I draw on here there's a bit of a disconnect because I've got to anticipate where I'm going to be drawing the lines on the screen. I have found it a little bit easier because this was the first little real tablet that I had to use. So what I could do was attach it to my laptop and kind of take it with me and hang about with it, whereas it's not as easy with a pen display to do that unless you get one of the small ones. But with the small pen displays you also get a similar kind of issue that I want to talk about now with this, where I've only got a small screen to do this on, so it's great for doing these like big sketchy things, like if I want to block something out and do thumbnails or sketches and something, then it gives me a lot of room to go and do that. But if I want to go in and start doing detail, as soon as I start zooming in on something like this, then everything starts to get a little bit gritty, just because it's been more zoomed out and I haven't been able to put as much detail as I wanted to in it. So with this kind of thing, you're going to end up zooming in and out more just to go and check the details. And that can lead to its own problems, because as you zoom in to work on more details, you can end up overworking things when you're too zoomed in and end up with it looking bad once you zoom out. And I found that to be quite a big problem with the little tablet that I've got. So I've also noticed that this is something when you look at them listed on like the Wacom website, they'll say, oh, the big ones, these are good for like professionals that are doing big finished works, and with the little ones they usually say, oh, these are great for sketching. And I think that's the reason why. It's because you can do more stuff that's like zoomed out on a little bit of a more vague scale rather than in like hyper detailed stuff, but it starts to kind of not be as easy once you start zooming in. Something that this will affect you with as well is that when you draw a line like this, because there's a little bit of a disconnect between where I'm drawing the pen actually onto the tablet and where it's appearing on the screen, there's a little bit of like disassociation between where they are, so it's a little bit more difficult to get the pen to go exactly where you want it. So say if I want to draw a bunch of lines and I want them all in the right place, they're going to probably be a little bit more wiggly than I'd actually be able to do them if I was doing it like traditionally or onto a pen display. And I've particularly noticed this, say if I've got something already and done and I want to go over it and do line art, it's kind of difficult to line things up straight away. And this leads me to pressing the undo button quite a lot with this, or not quite a lot, it kind of decreases as you get more comfortable with doing lines, just because that's a skill you can build up. But I think it's always going to end up with you pressing the undo button a little bit more than if you're drawing like straight onto a pen display, just because you don't have that immediate relativity between like where your hand is and where the pen is actually touching what you're drawing. And I want to make it clear too that when I say there's a little bit of a disconnect between these and disassociation, you do get that, but there is still a cursor on the screen, so even when you're not actually touching the pen to the tablet, then it's still going to come up with a little cursor on the screen so you can tell where the line is going to start from. That said, it can be actually quite comfortable to use these because you don't have to, like you can see my Cintiq here is pretty much like near vertical, so it's kind of a strain to sit at that for a very long time. But if you've got this, you can just like sit it on your lap and sit in like whatever position you want, as long as you've got room to move your arm around. And you know, you're still going to be able to draw. You can sit anywhere comfortable and draw with one of these. So it's kind of a thing that if I'm ill, I'll sit in bed with it, with my laptop, like on my knee, and just scribble on that, and figure out some like little sketches or something. Something else that affects it too, I found, is that because this tablet isn't particularly big, you can get ones that are slightly bigger, but they're probably all about around this size. I think mine is a medium out of the bamboo series that they made, but with the Intuos that they have now, you can get like small, medium, and large. So the medium's probably going to be around this, but in comparison to the screen that I've got, that is a Cintiq 22, this is pretty small, so when I move my arm across it, I'm not really getting all that much room to move my arm. I'm only really pivoting my elbow like this, rather than like my entire arm like I would when I'm drawing on the bigger screen on the Cintiq, and that can kind of affect your lines, I found, because you want to be able to make these big flowy lines and move your whole arm around. And the smaller the tablet is, the more difficult it is to do that. And some of these issues you could potentially negate, like if you had a bit of a bigger screen to draw on to plug it into, but I think then you're still going to run into this issue of the tablet not really being big enough for you to be able to get those really nice, smooth arm movements. And this was actually one of the things I was having an issue with it before I got my Cintiq, and I was thinking maybe I could get a little 13-inch Cintiq, but it was not going to allow me to make those kind of arm movements that I wanted to, so I'm really glad that I went with the 22 one. Okay, so pretty much most of what I said sounds kind of negative, but there's also something I really like about this, and it's the other side of having this disconnect between where the pen is and where your hand's going, because normally when you're drawing, you'll draw on a surface and you won't really be able to see what's behind where your hand is, and it's going to have the same kind of effect as having like the smaller screen that you're drawing on, so you've got to keep zooming in to pick at stuff, but it's going to be your hand obscuring some of the image that you're making, rather than just because you need the screen zoomed in, it's going to like not include a lot of it on the screen. And this can actually be a major advantage in my opinion, because when I'm drawing on this screen, I don't have my hand in the way of what I'm doing like this. So the stuff that's here that I want to work on, if I want to put details in here, then I can see all of this bit over here. There's nothing obscuring it, so I can keep all of my sizes relative. Like if I've got something over here that needs to be a similar size to this, I don't have to keep moving my hand and like shifting out of the way. I've got everything completely clean. There's nothing that's obscuring my view of what I'm making. And I think this is like so helpful for, like I say, doing little sketches, which I think is another reason why it may be kind of being sold as more of a thing for doing sketches, because it is so much easier to do like sketches and little concepts and like figure studies and things with this, just because you have an completely unobstructed view of what you're trying to draw. I think that's particularly good if you're starting out as well, because being able to see all of that and understand the relativity of the sizes and the thing that you're drawing is so helpful when you're just starting out and studying a lot. And like I say, even though I've got the Cintiq here, this is something that I will still use for that, like solely for that little advantage. Also, these pen tablets are pretty cheap. And even though, like I've mentioned, the disadvantages that there are, these are definitely worth being the first thing that you get. I would never go straight to getting a pen display if I wasn't sure that I was going to be using it like all the time, or if I wasn't going to be working on like huge detailed things, because if you're not sure if you're going to spend that much time with a big pen display, then it really isn't worth the risk of paying that much for one. But starting out with one of these will give you a really good start, and then, you know, once you've progressed a bit and you'd like to move up, then I think it's a better idea to move on to something bigger and more expensive. Okay, so now let's have a look at the pen display. Now with this, you can notice that this is basically trying to mimic paper a little bit more closely. So if I go and draw on this, the pen is putting the lines down right where I'm actually drawing them onto the screen. So it's a little bit easier to adjust to initially, but there is still that little bit of delay just because it's digital. It's still something that you've got to get used to. You won't adapt to this straight away, like immediately. You do have to put a little bit of work into getting used to it, but it's a lot less work than trying to get used to a regular tablet. Like I mentioned earlier, this one's a lot bigger, so when I move my arm across it, you know, and because of the orientation of it, it's just pretty much like near vertical. Then I kind of have to pick my arm up and actually move my full arm around to make lines on it. So that helps me to have a little bit more room. Like with the other one I mentioned, there is a lot more room when I zoom in on this one. There's just a lot more room on the screen in general for me to go mess with stuff. It's a bit easier to see, and when I zoom in, then I've got more room on the screen to see what is around the thing I'm trying to zoom in on, and it's a lot easier to keep everything relative to each other and understand the relativity of sizes and things if you're drawing, or the relativity of colour that's around something. But with this, you have the same issue as paper. You don't get the advantage, like with the other one, of not being able to have your hand in the way, because if I do this and I'm resting on the screen, then, you know, I can only see where my hand is, like exactly where the pen's drawing, and then my hand's in the way. It's either going to be like this way or that way if you're like left-handed, and you're still going to get like you're still going to get a bit of the canvas obscured by your hand when you're trying to draw. I think as well, the bigger screen also, it feels a lot more comfortable. I feel a lot more engrossed in what I'm doing. I think they go up to like maybe 32, I think the newer ones are. No, this is really good for going and doing big things with a lot of detail, but I still think that the little pen tablet has the advantage when it comes to sketching and doing little concepts and things and making layouts, but this definitely has the advantage with doing more finished stuff. Something about these two is that they are really big and cumbersome, like really big and cumbersome. I will have to sit like at a desk to use this, and it's not very comfortable. I've made it a little bit more comfortable recently with the arm that I got for it instead of the usual stand, which actually isn't great. The original stand for it's not very comfortable to use. But no, if I just want to go and sketch something, this thing kind of puts me off. Like if I have to use this thing to go and do a sketch, it kind of makes me feel miserable because I have to go and sit at my desk. I can't just like go and chill if I want to go and like study or something. So for that kind of thing, I'll either do it with like the little tablet, or I'll do it traditionally because it's a little bit like comfier to go and sit somewhere. But I tend to keep this for like big finished stuff, because it's the most appropriate thing for it. You can get other brands of these. My Cintiq 22 HD, which is this one, was around 1,350 when I got it. I think it might be a little bit more normally because I got it like on sale. I can't personally recommend anything because I've only ever had these two tablets. I haven't tried any of the other brands, but if you guys go and look around, you can definitely find other brands for cheaper. Okay, so now we've had a little bit of a demo of each of those and I've kind of explained it. I've put everything together in a little chart so that you guys can check it out. So let's just go over these pros and cons for each of them again. Okay, so the first one's price, and for the pen tablets, you're looking at a lower to medium price range because they're not as much of a specialised piece of kit as the pen display. For the newer pen displays, I've seen them for a minimum of around like 600 for the small ones, but I think if you get a small pen display, you're kind of not really getting any of the benefits of the larger size that you usually get with a pen display, and you're still going to be stuck with a lot of the issues that I've mentioned with the pen tablet. And the next one is the learning curve. Now with the little pen tablet, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, like I mentioned, just because you've got that little bit of separation between where you're drawing and where you're actually seeing something appear on the screen, but it's a lot easier with a pen display. But I still don't think this is a good reason to go straight to a pen display. I don't think I'd ever recommend that. It's going to give you a lot more ability to learn if you kind of have a bit of a fight with the pen tablet and just get used to that, because it's gonna still help you once you kind of progress onwards to a pen display afterwards. And the next one is the sizes that these are available in. Now with the pen display, you can get them from small to like really, really huge. And like I mentioned before, the huge ones are probably the ones you want to go to, or just large. I wouldn't say get a small one because like I say, it's going to negate all the benefits that you get with a pen display. But with a pen tablet, you can get them from small to medium. But I think I'd recommend trying to get a larger pen tablet if you go for that option, because it's going to give you more room to move your arm and make those nice smooth big curves that you need to make. And onto like the worst features of them with the pen display, it's that they're really big and cumbersome and expensive. They're not always like comfortable to use, and you're probably going to be working on them for a long time. So it's not really completely like foolproof. It's not going to be completely amazing. It does have issues. And with the pen tablet, like I say, most of them are going to be at the smaller end, especially if you want to get a cheaper one. So that's going to make it a little bit more difficult to draw. And that kind of coupled with it taking longer to adjust to is going to be quite annoying. And I think it's a little bit of a hindrance in some ways, especially if, like I mentioned, you want to do things that are a little bit bigger and more detailed. And then if we look at some of the best features of these, I really do enjoy the pen tablet just because of this one. I don't get the obstruction from my hand when I'm drawing. There's nothing in the way of the drawing immediately, and on the screen it's just a nice, completely clear screen. My hand and everything is completely out of the way. There's no pen in the way, and that can really help to sort something out, like in terms of composition or just getting everything down on the screen and not having to move around constantly. And also with that, it means that I can go and sit comfortably with a pen tablet pretty much anywhere that I want. In terms of the pen display, then you've got the benefits that it is feeling closer to traditional. It really does kind of feel a lot closer to drawing traditionally, but you get all the perks of digital, like being able to press undo a bunch. And it's a lot more intuitive just in the way that you can use the pen in a way that we are used to using pens. Okay, and the last one is what I think is the best usage for these, and also the ones that I've found that are generally recommended when you actually look at where the companies are selling these, like on the Wacom website and everything. The pen tablets are a lot better for sketches and studies and little concepts, just things where you're kind of planning out something a little bit bigger but not really going into too much detail with it. And the pen display, on the other hand, is better for doing these large finished works where you need to see a big space on something to be able to relate everything to each other in it and kind of understand it in a larger kind of frame, but also be able to work on the details at the same time without having to zoom in to a ridiculous degree. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I hope that helped. If it did, give us a like, share if you think it'll help someone else, and subscribe for new videos on Fridays. There'll be links down in the description to where I post stuff, as well as the Discord group, as well as where you can buy prints of stuff that I've already drawn and my commission information. I'll put some links to some more relevant videos around my head right now. I've got one that's a review of my Cintiq. I've got one that's about tablet gloves and stuff. I've got a couple of different ones. Also, ooh, I just bought me a pair of like gunner glasses, so I'll probably do a review on those soon. Stop burning my eyes out on the screens. Pretty nifty looking. Thanks for watching, friendos. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.